The BP oil spill crisis has provoked plenty of controversy, and also there are plenty of lessons to be learned from this. To examine this issue is Steve Carver. Now Steve, you've got plenty of oil industry experience, project management experience, and you've seen a lot of crises over the years and how they're handled. What are your reflections on this BP oil spill crisis?
Okay, I'd like to answer your question on two levels. The first one is almost the simple one, is the thing that's in the newspapers at the moment. Did it go right? No, it was a complete disaster. They did everything wrong according to the book. His appalling quotes, a small spill, the little people that came from the chairman, and of course I want my life back. And then to compound it with getting onto a yacht over the weekend, you thought, is this guy crazy? And the other thing that occurred to me was, what the hell were his PR people doing to allow him to get that far down the line? And certainly BP have done it all wrong, and it's cost them half their company's capitalisation. So that's the easy side. In many ways, they should have done some basic crisis management, and I'm astounded that a chairman could have got to that position in the company without sufficient training.
Now, if I look at the other side of the coin about managing a major project, what went wrong there? Was it serious errors? Was it just not making an assessment of risk properly? Just what was it?
Okay, I think they're in frontier land with the Gulf of Mexico, in the deep water that they are. And it's quite interesting because this is where you start to go to a slightly deeper level, forgive the pun, but actually start to say, well, why were they drilling at that depth at the frontiers of technology without a relief well? The Canadians wouldn't allow it, most sensible companies wouldn't allow it. Why were BP doing it? Were they reckless? Well, actually, no, they were doing to the American standards. And so the question that we now need to ask is, what on earth were the Americans doing, allowing any oil company to drill that deep with that technology without a relief well? Because if the first well goes and the BOP doesn't work, you're going to end up exactly with the disaster that they had.
So let's get a bit deeper, a bit broader, and reflect on this.
Yes, and that's where let's almost park the crisis management. It was a basic failing. It should be put right. I'm sure BP will learn, and others, of course, will learn. I think the thing that started making me think in a different way was when I watched poor Mr. Hayward go in front of Congress. And okay, it was a 90-minute humiliation ritual, and they all queued up to kick him. And I think that played well internally. But to the rest of the world, I think we all thought, well, what is this about? And the picture that went into my mind, it was like a teenager going through sort of pangs of adolescence, saying that the world wasn't fair. It was like the American angst about oil and the fact they have got so little of it, and they're forced to drill in these appalling conditions to get it in their own waters because they're falling out with everybody else, means that, hey, the Americans are beginning to feel that the era of cheap oil is over, and they will be at the mercy perhaps of people that they don't like. And their frustration and anger basically was vented, in this case, on British petroleum. I was appalled when Obama came up with that, because it hasn't been referred to as British petroleum, and he knows it for 15 years. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was deliberate agitation. Now, when one goes one step lower than that, one says, well, why did Obama do it? Now, I'm in two minds on this one at the moment, which is either A, he was very foolish and was playing very short-term stakes for a xenophobic audience, which means that basically he's going from statesman to rather unpleasant politician at a single step, and that just strikes me as so un-Obama-like. The other one is he's playing a longer game, and when you look at what he said, he did actually start to slip in this thing about the era of cheap oil is perhaps over. So perhaps he's using the whole thing as a pivot point to actually move the American psyche from cheap oil to a realisation that they've got to play a different game.
So is the message that businesses have got to play in the political arena, and they've jolly well got to wise up on that?
Well, again, I see this as a sea change in the way that we are going to deal with crises like this. We saw it with the Toyota one. The Americans went crazy over Toyotas, and they demanded the CEO come over from Japan, and they did the same ritual kicking. But people, I think, especially after the BP one, are saying, hang on a minute, is this really the way to go forward? If a large company makes a mistake, what we're going to do is wheel in the CEO and turn it into a circus of small people just kicking them around, and then demand resignations. Because where does that lead us in the long term? Well, if you had any sense at all, you'd look at that job and think, I don't want to do that. I don't want to ever be put in that position. And what I'm now finding, and I work in a lot of industries, is a lot of very good people who should be going for CEO level are looking at the job and thinking, I don't want to be a Tony Hayward. I won't actually go there. And of course, the only people who are now saying, hey, I really want that job, perhaps you've got to look at their mental state, because if we're not careful, you end up with psychopaths at the top, which is not a good outcome. We need to learn to deal with these crises in a better way. Yes, the technical side, not making gaffes, but perhaps looking at it in a broader context.
So big business in particular and CEOs, you've got to think deeper, you've got to think harder.
Yes, and broader. And I think that not only applies to business, I think it's the population as well.
So Stephen, thank you.